Black Hornet. Hello, this is J.P. Burton. Before we begin, I want to personally thank you for listening to Black Hornet. In a moment, you'll meet David Lozano, a young man who had his entire life mapped out until the day it all fell apart. This is a story about what comes next. It's about failure, faith, and finding an unexpected mission when you feel like you have nothing left to lose. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Bullets splintered the walls around David Lozano. He kept his face to the ground and prayed. This was as close as anyone would ever come to stopping him. Before the attack started, it had been pitch black in the abandoned grocery store he was walking through. Now, everything around him was light, fire, and havoc. Shattered glass, cement, gypsum, perlite, sparks, and lead flew around, cutting into his neck and arms. He prayed. His ears rang. The sweat on his neck. The taste of chalk and dust. He brushed charcoal hair from his forehead. The enemy, whoever they were, had stopped firing. Today was David's first mission for Sam Conagher. It wasn't going well. Lozano was in the war-torn city of Stepanakert in the Eastern European nation of Azerbaijan. An American citizen, he had entered the country 3 days ago under an assumed name. He arrived at the coastal city of Baku with Conagher, got a pistol and other supplies from a P.O. box, drove 4 hours toward the Caucasus Mountains, left the car, and then hiked into the war zone. Sam Conagher, his coordinator, stayed behind with the vehicle. 20 minutes ago, he had reached Stepanakert. 60 seconds ago, they had found him. Now, he couldn't get his head together. This behavior was out of character for him. In theory, he knew he could stand up, but his body didn't work. All it did was cavitate. Why? The assault had come from the south, probably 300 meters away, and from a huge weapon like a 50 cal, or 12.7 by 99 millimeter, whatever they called it in this part of the world. Odd that he could think clearly about that in his condition. The bullets were so big that the force of them hitting nearby walls sent him into shock. His heartbeat was off. He was stuck in a fetal position, shaking, talking to God, mostly in nonsense. A loud metallic squeal from overhead. Lozano had an earpiece, really just an AirPod. Sam Conagher shouted at him over it, "David, are you okay? Let me know you're out there, bud." David willed his left pinky finger to move, and it did. This was a good start. It meant he was still alive. "Lozano, I can hear you breathing," Conagher continued. "Tap your mic or something." David could hear his breathing too, and he was hyperventilating. Box breathing. He willed his lungs to slow down. "Talk to me, bud," Conagher said. The next step for David was communication. To start, he spoke with God again. He thanked Jesus for his life. To Conagher, he choked, "Not hit. Not hit." David heard a sigh of gratitude. "I'm okay." He lifted his head, more progress, and did a visual check. Fingers and toes accounted for. Great. But he was dizzy, and his pulse was all over the place. His stomach hurt. His jumbo Big Texas brass belt buckle dug into his navel. A glance upward, then behind, told why he was so jittery. The holes in the cement wall behind him were 6 inches around. Definitely a 50 cal. Half-inch diameter bullets, 2¼ inches long, striking with 7 tons of force, the weight of 2 elephants flying at twice the speed of sound. They could kill you if they missed. And this volley had been more than 100 of them, maybe 1,000, 1,000,000 billion. Come on, Lozano, start thinking straight. It wasn't psychological shock he was dealing with. It was a physical reaction to being so close to near artillery shell-sized bullets as they hit. Another metallic squeal from above. He looked up. The roof collapsed. He lay frozen as ceiling tiles rushed toward him, stopping less than a meter from his nose. The grid lodged against something outside his field of vision. The tiles shattered, spewing dust and foam into his eyes, mouth, and nose. The irritation and discomfort gave him the will to move. He coughed, wiped his face with sweaty hands, and attempted to stand up. Something weighed his legs down, a long aluminum shelf. He managed to throw it off. Finally, he got on his feet. For a second, he felt a sharp pain in his hip that soon eased off. Good. As he stood, blood rushed to his head. He looked around, trying to listen over his jacked-up heart rate. He reached into his backpack and removed his weapon. It was a Zagana PX-9, a pretty good Turkish-made 9mm. Far off, he could hear small arms fire. The battlefront was several kilometers away. Other than that, nothing, no traffic, no birds, no animals, no noise, only Lozano, the empty city, and somewhere his enemies. Don't stop, he thought. David, can you move? Conagher asked. Yeah, David said, I've been talking to God, Conagher. He sounded crazy, but he couldn't help it. Those bullets, they were like 2 elephants. His breath and heartbeat were obnoxiously loud. I need you to listen to me, Bud, Conagher said. Lozano hated it when Conagher called him Bud. Stop with the Bud, David replied, still stuttering from the shock. You trying to get a rise out of me? He stepped on a ceiling tile and slipped, wobbling but managing to stay upright. Yeah, I am trying to get a rise out of you. I need you firing on all cylinders. Mentally, physically, spiritually, philosophically, existentially. David, are you there? Yes, Conagher, I am here. Spiritually, physically, whatever. A spasm in his chest. His hands shook. Then get your head in the game. You are 1 kilometer away from a $200 billion buried treasure. Between it and you are men with fully automatic weapons. Do you want this? Yes, I want this. Then go get it, Conagher said. Aggressors haven't moved for 2 minutes. Is that bad? Maybe they changed their mind, or they think they got me already, or oops, they fired on a civilian. That's good news, right? Conagher said, of course it... Oh, I see. Battery flare-up coming from where those bad guys are. Huh? What does that mean? And the battery's flying. You mean the battery's dying, right? Nope, flying. They've got a drone. Is that bad? Yep, that's bad. Once they start flying, I can't track them. Lozano embraced the suck. He'd had a simple life once, school and a girl, and one day, maybe a job. Now, things were less than simple. He would not fail, and he would excel. Because this was Stepanakert, a miles-wide smoldering wreck, and it was a terrible place to die. Chapter 2. David Lozano was born in Stanford, California. His dad had served in the Navy as an EOD, or explosive ordnance technician, a highly sought-after special warfare role. After the military, his dad went into business, graduating from the Stanford School of Business and co-creating an app later bought by Apple. David's parents instilled an entrepreneurial spirit into their only son, hoping it would spur the young man to succeed. It did, but he was a fighter. They wanted him in business. He wanted to be in the Navy. He wanted to be a SEAL. He wanted to exceed his father's military achievements. He didn't care about business. When Stanford offered David a scholarship out of high school to play football, his parents won the battle. But they wouldn't win the war. Stanford provided 2 of the greatest plot twists in David's life. The first occurred the moment he stepped on campus. Literally, as his foot hit the sidewalk for the first time, he saw her. Black-haired, flower-print cottagecore dress with poofy shoulders, amber-eyed. His dad called him. He didn't respond. He had a mission. Her name was Ellie, short for Eliana. He asked her out on the spot. She said yes. David's bluntness shocked her. Most of the boys in her life just acted nervous, stayed too nice, and got themselves friend-zoned. Within a week, David and Ellie were exclusive. Like him, she was a Christian. They had all the right things in common: values, friends, hobbies, theology. He got her into Brazilian jiu-jitsu. They hiked Mount Tamalpais and Murrieta Falls together. He fell in love with her culture. Her family was from Israel, and she advocated for Jewish causes on campus. World events left an imprint on their relationship. A month after David and Ellie met, Palestinian terrorists invaded Israel, massacring over 1,000 innocent men, women, and children, then taking hostages. Israel declared war on Palestine. In the U.S., the news networks, fueled by lunatic billionaires, sided with the terrorists. Groupthink infected Stanford, resulting in overwhelming anti-Semitism. Ellie fought back. Even as a freshman, she was soon known on campus as a pro-Israel advocate. David helped with Ellie's advocacy. He played football, majored in business, and worked at a startup on the side that, according to his dad, might go somewhere. Life was intense, stressful, perfect. Too perfect, and moving too fast. David knew he'd marry Ellie the minute he saw her. He loved her. His parents loved her. This was it. But a fear grew in him that he couldn't shake. After the dust settled, what would come next? Marriage, success, family, money. He could see the rest of his life, all of it, without variation. Every milestone, every beat. No doubt Ellie expected it of him, and her family too, and his family. He also had something to prove to himself that he couldn't do at Stanford. The wicked minds in charge of the place, the otherwise narrow context of sedate academia, his parents' white-collar approach to entrepreneurship. Other than Ellie, none of the pieces of his life seemed to fit together. In spite of the unrest on campus, his future was bright, but he felt trapped in it. That Christmas, he took Ellie to the Stanford Viennese Ball, an old-fashioned Beauty and the Beast type event. He wore a black tux. She surprised him by borrowing an emerald Stella McCartney dress from a friend. All eyes were on her. She took the microphone and sang Waltz for Debbie. After the ball, he walked her home past the Oval, an open park-like area in the center of Stanford campus. A crowd of protesters was spread out on the grass. Lozano stuck close to the buildings on the Oval's outer edge to avoid them. One of the students at the demonstration recognized Ellie and pointed her out. Lozano tried to lead them away, but in a blink they were mobbed. It was a nightmare. Activists of all shapes and sizes yelled, cursed, and provoked, recording with their phones. One bearded, effeminate 30-year-old punk went too far. He cursed Ellie's parents. Lozano didn't think. He grabbed the man by the beard, yanked it down, and crushed the protester's face with his kneecap. Lozano tossed the now unconscious activist face down on the grass. Some pebble-like objects clinked across the pavement. A pair of teeth. David spread his arms wide and said, "Anybody else?" The crowd ran for their lives like roaches when you turn on a light. David got Ellie to safety. They knew he would get arrested. They knew the incident would go viral. Together, they called their parents. David wanted to drop out of school and protest. His dad fought back hard. He told David to stay at Stanford and fight for his beloved alma mater. Dad would fix everything, blah, blah. Lozano got heated. The conversation didn't end well. David didn't sleep that night. He created a TikTok account and searched non-stop for Stanford clips, assuming that the video of his assault would pop up any second. He waited for the police to knock at his door. He prayed. He considered his future. The sun rose. The police never came. The video never went viral. Two things had happened that David didn't know about. First, David's dad had a lot of sway at Stanford. He'd used his influence to try to make the incident go away. That worked for the Stanford side of the equation. For the other half, the half where angry paid protesters filmed David committing assault, other powers had been at work. David walked to campus. He nodded hello to a couple of friends. They smiled back. He went to the Oval and stared at the pavement where he'd beat the protester. It was pristine. Not a single bloody beard hair on the sidewalk. Lozano walked to the Student Services building on Campus Drive, spoke with the registrar, and dropped out of college. Then he walked down the street to a recruiter's office and announced his intention to join the Navy and become a SEAL. Ellie didn't get it. David's parents didn't get it. To some extent, David didn't either. He figured if it wasn't God's plan, then God would make the whole enterprise fall through. He and Ellie talked through their relationship. David didn't want to break up with her. He didn't want to hold her in a long-distance relationship with long periods without communication either. Strangely, she seemed to know what God had told him, that his role was to stay home and do the right thing. She called him on it. They fought nonstop for a week. His dad kept calling him. They fought too. Lozano stopped taking his calls. Then she broke up with him. Plot twist number 2. From there, Lozano could only do one thing, put as much life between him and her as he could. University, the love of his life, a violent confrontation he wanted never to remember. Never again. God had a plan, and Lozano was running away from it as fast as he could. Chapter 3. From then on, failure would be David's closest companion. He was shipped to Great Lakes, Illinois for boot camp. Then he was shipped to San Diego for basic underwater demolition schools, or BUDS for short. With every change of location, Lozano felt an increasing sense of displacement, isolation, and anger. He needed it. He didn't think about Ellie when he was angry. He wasn't over her. They'd broken up, but it didn't feel final. Not for him, anyway. BUDS consisted of 3 7-week phases. Lozano did surprisingly well in the first 2, staying in the upper third of his class while ignoring an increasing pain in his left hip. During third phase, 16 weeks in, he fell from a rope on the obstacle course. He tried to stand up and realized he couldn't walk. His left femoral head, the ball joint in his hip, had snapped clean off his leg bone. A broken hip. At 20 years old. Surgery. In the twilight, as the painkillers and knockout juice soaked his bloodstream, he thought of Eliana. She was gone. 1 minute he was a college kid at Stanford. Now he was in the military, in the hospital with a broken hip. What was he doing here? Medical said full recovery might take 6 months. He might get back into buds after that, might not. Not enough vitamin D, the doctor said. This is the #1 issue I see in young sailors with this injury. You have to supplement, eat right, get outside more, and listen to your body. Unfortunately, you didn't do any of that properly. Now they tell him. After that, he had nothing to do, and he was bored out of his skull, injured, depressed. He putzed around Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, scrolling YouTube shorts on his phone, playing video games for hours a day, and hitting the weight room to keep up his upper body. Weightlifting seemed to help with his mood. Not much else did. He'd never considered not becoming a SEAL. With 4 years left on his contract, he'd be relegated to a desk. He could not fail. He must get back into the program. A month after the accident, a friend invited him to a bar in Pacific Beach. David hated bars with all the noise and gross smells. More than that, he hated alcohol. Why waste so much money ingesting chemicals that make you stupid? Why do anything to compromise your performance? On top of that, he was a Christian, and he was firmly convinced Christians shouldn't drink ever. None of his good friends drank, and he'd never seen the point in trying. But he was bored and depressed. Against his better judgment, he went. He sat at some place called Merlin's for an hour, eating mozzarella sticks and sipping water. His friend lost interest in conversing with him and trolled for women. Lozano stared at a Radiohead poster on the wall for 10 minutes, then walked out without a word and went to the beach. There are moments that young men don't understand until decades later. David had his phone out, had typed, "Can we talk?" in a text box to Ellie, and was about to hit send. The end of his relationship to Ellie had been the only thing that felt wrong about his decision to leave Stanford. He'd had to psych himself up to do it. He'd had to tell himself almost daily that it had been right. He knew that reaching back out to her was necessary, but his pride had gotten in the way. He just hadn't felt low enough to do it until now. Or did he? Then he looked up and saw a gigantic man standing in the middle of the boardwalk. The man wore an Aloha shirt, jeans, and flip-flops, holding an enormous coffee mug. At first glance, David thought he was looking at some sort of bigwig, a general, or maybe even an admiral. He had an officer's gait and was silver-haired, maybe in his late 40s or early 50s. David had met General Petraeus once at an event in high school. He thought he'd never experienced that sense of command in another human being until he saw this guy. At the same time, something intangibly weird was there. His eyes were cold and still, like a snake's. His silver hair was slicked back carelessly with a small cowlick, like he'd missed gelling a spot. The result was a warrior with a hint of sociopath and a dash of nutty professor. And there was a stillness. He'd been waiting for David. "Seaman David Lozano?" the man asked. "Yeah." David thought of the knife he kept in his back pocket. A Benchmade infidel his cousin had given him before leaving for buds. "Do you know who I am? Are you with the teams?" "No." "Am I in for a fight?" Why your knuckles hurt?" "From what?" "From that dust-up you had at the Oval at Stanford." Lozano gritted his teeth. "Who are you?" David had heard of CIA recruiters poaching guys from the teams at retirement, sometimes before. But why would they want some idiot kid who just washed out of buds with an injury? David had been toward the top middle of his class, but it had been made clear there was nothing exceptional about his performance. Lozano asked, "Are you CIA?" "Don't ask stupid questions." I said, "Do you know who I am?" The man pulled a bright red business card from his pocket. "Seen these before?" "A business card?" "Drop by your CO tomorrow morning. Tell them I flashed a red card and asked you for a meeting, then hop an Uber to Golden Shores Marina 10 minutes from base. I'll be waiting." "Do you have, office hours?" "All day tomorrow. After that, your ship has sailed." "Who are you?" "Sam Conagher." Conagher turned and disappeared into the crowd, Batman style, cowlick sticking up like an antenna, sipping from his comically large coffee mug. David glanced at the card. Its texture was smooth and glossy, and it was blank. Chapter 4. Lozano's dad often quoted Mark Twain growing up, "Most men die at 27. We just bury them at 72. David Lozano had died at 20. During his 6 months of college, he'd measured his time in 15-minute increments. Ellie, class, football, jiu-jitsu, the Stanford Supports Israel club he'd joined for Ellie's sake. Now, Lozano woke up, killed time, and slept. He was on the verge of being what he called mid for life, perfectly average, a waste of oxygen, a future cubicle warmer of America, a soda-sucking, fast-food-grubbing diabetes candidate. Hesitation meant his future would be mid for life, and he hated himself for leaving the possibility open. How could he be so scared, so lazy? He'd thought twice about Conagher's offer. He'd hesitated. Ellie hadn't texted him back. Then he remembered he'd never sent the message he'd typed. He got out of bed and went to his CO, a gravel-voiced man with a face shaped like an Easter Island head. "Sam Conagher wants a meeting with you," he said. "Yes, sir. Why?" "He didn't say, sir." "Seaman, is this a joke?" "No, sir." "If Sam Conagher wants a meeting, you take it." "Yes, sir." "Go. Where is he again? Pacific Marina?" "Golden Shores Marina, sir." "Look at you, a memory like a steel trap. Dismissed." Lozano hopped an Uber to the Golden Shores Marina 10 minutes from base. It was situated in a vibrant and chill neighborhood called Point Loma, with Gen Z-looking coffee shops, charter boat fishing places, and high-end diving stores. He was dropped off in front of a chain-link fence between a haute breakfast cafe and a surf store. Beyond the fence was a different world, a gateway from SoCal cool to a spectacular dump. Golden Shores Marina was a window to the 1970s, full of ancient yellowed fiberglass boats and yachts. The gate itself was uneven, rusted, and secured with a $5 master lock on a bike chain. David considered the ship graveyard and the pathetic attempt at security, wondering if this was some kind of test. Was he supposed to text someone about his arrival? Was everyone out to lunch? A note torn from a spiral-bound notebook was stuffed in the bottom rung of the fence. David picked it up, unfolded it, and read, "No trespassing. Unless you're David, in which case jump the fence." David checked his 6, tossed his crutches over the fence, and climbed over. Although the movement was awkward and his doctor would skin him alive for trying, he was still strong enough to accomplish it without putting his hip in danger. He was greeted with the scent of seawater, the gift of quiet. Oddly, the street noise outside disappeared almost completely. On closer inspection, the boats were even dumpier than he'd thought. There was even a 40-foot wood-planked wonder called the SS Minnow with the boat's moniker hand-painted across its bow. A small seal waddled across a dock at the other end of the marina, eyeing him like an intruder. Next to it was a dark-skinned, maybe 25-year-old man with a close-cropped beard and a Steve Jobs turtleneck, unusually skinny, nerd skinny. "Are you Seaman Lozano?" the man yelled with a Middle Eastern accent, his voice echoing through the marina. "Yes, sir," David said reflexively. "Join me in the mansion, please. I will let Mr. Conagher know you are here." When he got to the so-called mansion, the environment made sense. On the outside, everything was a dump. The mansion's interior, though, was clean and even luxurious. There was a welcome area with a marble floor. Near it was a massive computer with 9 monitors arranged tic-tac-toe style in front of a stand-up desk. A black, cube-shaped CPU glowed amber and yellow with tubes threading in and out. Liquid cooling? Lozano still wanted to make a good first impression on the receptionist, so he complimented the setup. "That's quite a PC. Do you play Minecraft on that thing?" The receptionist smiled. "Of course. What do you think it's there for?" The marble floor extended past the computer to an atrium 3 stories up. Its ceiling was a mural displaying tall ships firing cannons at a giant kraken, cheesy but cool. The man in the turtleneck gestured to a pair of elevator doors that opened to reveal a spectacular view of downtown San Diego. "The lift will take you to the 3rd floor. Mr. Conagher is expecting you there." Chapter 5. A short ascent, a gentle bump. The 3rd floor was a massive, wood-paneled library, the kind you only see on Instagram. In its center, seated on a leather chair under a skylight, looking exactly as impressive as he had been designed to, sat Conagher, reading a biography of Winston Churchill. His oversized coffee mug sat on an end table next to him. All this was too theatrical for Lozano's taste. Why show off like this? He felt disrespected. But whatever lay ahead had to be better than pushing pencils for the rest of his life. "Good morning," Conagher said. his voice a rumbling bass. "I know what you're thinking." "That this is a little over the top," Lozano said. "That too," Conagher said. "You're thinking, what kind of coffee is worthy of a gallon-sized coffee mug? The answer this week is La Bête Noire, hand-picked in Yemen, roasted down the street at Café Rochefort, and ground by yours truly. It sells for $30 a cup retail, finest Arabica on earth. Would you like some?" Lozano's dad often quoted Proverbs 23:1-2. "When thou sittest to eat with a ruler, consider diligently what is before thee, and put a knife to thy throat, if thou be a man given to appetite." Lozano replied, "Absolutely." Conagher reached under the end table, pulled out a plain white coffee mug, and poured David some coffee. It smelled entrancing. "I know what else you're thinking," the older man said. "Most private military contractors, the boutique operations at least, hang out in boring offices in the middle of nowhere. How did we get a seaside Wayne Manor?" The thought had not crossed Lozano's mind. "The reason is," Conagher said, "that we are more than a Blackwater wannabe. Most extra-military operations are assigned via the good old boys network at the Pentagon. For the really weird stuff, there's a dark web version of Craigslist where contractors bid on work. We aren't either of those." "What are you then?" "To put it succinctly, we do whatever we want." "What do you mean?" Lozano sipped his coffee. He had to stop and think as the taste washed over him. What was it? Chocolate, honey, gasoline? "I mean, we do whatever we want." Lozano smiled. "There's no, accountability?" "No." Lozano's smile drained away. "What about, there's me, then there's the president, then there's God Almighty. That's the chain of command." "Well, the guy with the money tells you what to do, right? Where does the money come from?" "First, I'm independently wealthy. Second, if you want to dig through several elegantly arranged layers of laundered tax money, we are a subsidy of the Central Intelligence Agency." "I suppose asking how you got wealthy would be a stupid question." "Of course not. I made a fortune in restaurants and property after leaving the Navy. The opportunity to do this came up later." "How long have you been doing whatever you want?" "My whole life. This gig, about 2 years. You good at it?" "How's the coffee?" "I can't tell you why, but I know it's the best I've ever had." Conagher nodded. "So," Lozano continued, "the CIA just sits around and lets you do anything?" "Not just them, everybody. Give me the red card." Lozano did. Conagher bit the corner. It turned bright orange. "It's coded to my DNA. If you tried the same thing, don't, by the way, that's gross, it would turn blue." "And?" "And that's it. Theoretically, if I needed to, I could give orders to the Joint Chiefs of Staff." Lozano wondered if this was the most elaborate practical joke he'd ever been a victim of. "Why me?" "You went to Stanford?" "Yes, sir." "Met a girl there?" His throat dried. "Yes, sir." "Jewish?" "Messianic. She's Jewish by culture but believes that Jesus is the Messiah." "Is?" "Not was." "Correct, Jesus is the Messiah," he said, reciting words Ellie had often told him in church. "You know, I could help you walk away from all this and return to Stanford." "I'm never going back." "You sure?" "Never." Conagher smiled, looked at his coffee for a moment, then back at Lozano. "The Stanford Supports Israel Club is a CIA recruiting track. Your ex-girlfriend doesn't know." He sipped his coffee and watched Lozano like a snake. "The agency was eyeing you even before you knocked that guy's teeth out. I was too. When you broke your hip, the agency started looking elsewhere. I didn't. Also, I talked to your pastor." I'm sorry, what?" After Conagher recited the name and location of the church Lozano had grown up in, Lozano continued, "Is this a joke?" "No, it's not a joke. I want a team with whom I share my faith. It's too difficult otherwise. I'd like you to consider joining my team of broken toys." 10 seconds passed before Lozano realized his mouth had been hanging open. "You okay?" "Need a diaper or something?" Conagher asked. "I know your whole life story, but you're in shock because I spoke with your pastor?" No. He met the team. Michael Katsaros was a quiet, analytical, dumpy gunsmith and thinker who they called Katsaros the Greek. He hid in a basement-like workroom and made custom rifles for special operators. Outside, cleaning the SS minnow, was Ash Longstride, a hyper-athletic Texan who seemed like any enlisted man cleaning a bathroom on a destroyer. Back in the lobby was the receptionist, Gareth, Iranian by birth, raised in Silicon Valley like David, continuously at his massive supercomputer. He was the data guy. Finally, Vero, Conagher's daughter, joined them during the tour. She was the mission coordinator, Lozano's age, half Latina, with flat-ironed black hair. The team was cool. Conagher finished his pitch to Lozano. Lozano took the job. Back on base, Lozano had a 5-minute meeting with his officer in charge. He then signed a form letter. With a second signature from the Rear Admiral in charge of Naval Warfare Special Command, Lozano had just received a get-out-of-the-military-free card. Lozano told his parents nothing. Communication with them had been touch and go since Bud started. They only wanted him to limp back to Stanford and marry Ellie. But David needed this experience. He had to know where it would lead. He packed his things into a laundry bag, then left the base for what he hoped would be the last time. Things were looking up. Chapter 6, Stepanakert, Azerbaijan, present day. 12 weeks later, things were not looking up. David was stranded in Stepanakert, still shook from the 50 cal attack, and being hunted by a drone. "Okay, a drone," David said. "Like, what are we talking about here?" He couldn't see the exit to the shot-out grocery store he was stuck in, and whoever these bad guys were, they had a drone. "Oh, just a little guy," Conagher said over the AirPod in Lozano's ear. The pitch of Conagher's voice was slightly, microscopically higher than usual. David took no comfort in it. "What does that mean?" "A little guy, like a black Hornet." "I don't know drones. What's a black Hornet?" "It's tiny, no weapons. At least I think there are no weapons, just cameras. It might have thermal. Move quickly." "That's great advice, Conagher. You do this professionally?" "Watch your mouth, noob." Lozano made his way toward the back of the grocery store. He tripped on a chair. Chairs again. Empty ones were everywhere, as if the population had been raptured. 2 months ago, Stepanakert had been a comfortable town of 75,000. Its heritage stretched beyond recorded history. Part Muslim, part Orthodox Christian, part Soviet, uniquely Eastern European. There were still beautiful sights to see. The powerful "We Are Our Mountains" monument, charming parks and squares, a collapsed 50-meter cross made from latticework steel. Now, thanks to a rebellion, it was a ghost town. The people had fled. The streets were filled with debris, especially for some reason chairs. "Lozano, I need you to listen to me," Conagher said. Conagher was a kilometer away in an improvised bunker, viewing the situation live via American spy satellite. For David, having an eye in the sky and a voice in his ear was nice. Running through the forest alone without any backup was not. "You said these guys would be dollar store rebels. Where would they get a drone?" "I don't know. eBay? They're a click and a half northeast, FYI. They did some nice shooting from that distance. You just took a beating from Ma Deuce. Good job, Lozano." "Who's Ma Deuce?" "It's a nickname for their machine gun, a Browning M2. You're still alive. Praise the Lord." Even if David's walk was still shaky, his thoughts made sense. Did they find me randomly, or were they looking for me? What does the satellite say? Before they fired on you, they'd been moving in from outside town. Likely they're rebels or unknown actors after the same thing we are. Either way, David, move. David moved, stumbling over ceiling tile frames, playing hopscotch. His backpack weighed a ton. His surroundings were devastated. The store's front wall was gone from the waist up, and what was left might collapse any second. What a mess. There'd been a vibrant marketplace here once where men, women, and children bought lamb, fish, paper towels, cinnamon toast crunch, whatever. After 10 meters of tiptoeing through rubble, a gentle breeze brushed his face. The air was cool and light with an oily smell. In front of him was a 6-foot hole in the wall, leading to the war-torn ruins outside. David stepped out of the store, ducked behind the cement, and looked for where to hide next. "Stop," Conagher said. "Heat signature close to you." Lozano froze. "Outside the building, right outside, north end," Conagher said. "Where did he come from?" Instinctively, he stepped toward the hole in the wall. Conagher said, "He's a meter ahead of you, through the wall. He's—" A rifle barrel came around the corner. Chapter 7. The blued barrel of an AK-47 swung inward toward David. He didn't think. He reached forward with his left hand, grabbed the weapon's wooden handguard, and pushed it away, a burst of white light. For a brief second, he saw his attacker's face, a teenager with a greasy forehead, acne, and crew-cut black hair. Lozano's gun was in his right hand. He declined to use it, instead swinging his right elbow and striking hard on his eyebrow. A cut over the eye would blind him for the fight. Perfect connect. Lozano's elbow hit hard, sending his opponent's face back and away. Meanwhile, the AK went off, full auto, spraying bullets, brass, and fire. So loud. Lozano pulled the gun out of his arms. When it was free, Lozano shoved it backward, buttstock first, into the man's nose, resulting in a satisfying crunch. The boy fell backward, landing on the ground with a dull thud. Wrong place, wrong time. Neutralized, Lozano said. He scanned the unconscious body. It had landed on a large camouflage blanket. David took it between his fingers. Conagher, who are we dealing with here? What is it? This guy had a thermal poncho, makes you invisible to infrared. You're kidding, Conagher sighed. The Russians have them. Great. It doesn't change the mission. Move, Lozano. Lozano took the unconscious man's rifle and then was off like a shot. That was just the adrenaline spike he needed. He could think again. Where's the drone, Conagher? Can't see it. It's the size of a softball. You're 500 meters from your waypoint. Do you see it? Yes. The waypoint was Olympia Shopping Center, which looked exactly like the mission brief photos, a cement block building half the size of a Walmart. It had a billboard-type sign mounted high up, the name written in Arabic and Cyrillic with white text against robin egg blue. All you need to do is break in, Conagher said. Can't be too hard. Someone has to have blown a hole in it by now. Where are the bad guys? One click away. No birds, no crickets. Gunfire, but far away. Conagher, this drone thing, is it loud? Nope, you'll never hear it. Why aren't you inside yet? Large glass windows hung from the front wall of the structure. They were miraculously undamaged. David tried the front door, but it was locked. The building's intact. He couldn't shoot out the lock. He couldn't break a window. They would hear it. He was a terrific lockpick. The door lock was bottom of the line, and he'd even brought his tools, but he didn't have time to get it open before the drone found him. I'm going around back. Move fast. If that drone is some kid's toy from Amazon, then great. If it's got thermal, we're in for a long night. I should have taken that guy's poncho. Lozano took off his backpack and rustled through it. They don't help unless you're sitting still. Lozano, I'm on my way. There's definitely something else in play here. All right, no alternatives. I'm shooting the lock. But they'll hear you. David lifted the rifle, enjoyed his last moment of near-total silence, and pointed it at the lock. We're noisy, so what else is new? Chapter 8. We're noisy, so what else is new? Was a running joke between Lozano, Conagher, and the team back in San Diego. It reminded Lozano of several things. First, to laugh when things were tough. Second, it reminded him of the moment he decided to stop being a jerk to Conagher and his friends. Third, what a jerk he'd been during those first few weeks. Back to the joke. It had started with Gareth, the nerd receptionist who wore the Steve Jobs turtleneck. He served the team from behind his 9-screen computer, rarely leaving his desk. He had a near-divine ability to pull intelligence from the dark web, light web, or whatever. In return for doing that and fixing the Wi-Fi when it went down, Gareth didn't have to meet his peers' PT and combat training standards. The arrangement worked splendidly. He had no aptitude for physical activity that didn't involve a keyboard or controller. One day, shortly after Lozano had moved to the Golden Shores Marina, Gareth locked his keys in his car. Lozano joked to Gareth that a tiny bit of det cord, a high explosive, might get the door open. Gareth smiled and walked away. Half an hour later, an explosion rocked the marina. Everyone ran outside. The driver's side door of Gareth's Honda CR-V had been blown across the street and was surrounded by glass crystals. A small crater had blown through the blacktop where the once pristine vehicle was parked. There were no injuries except to Gareth's car. Several neighboring business owners soon confronted Gareth. Though the marina looked abandoned from the outside, it was not exactly quiet. Many had filed noise complaints during the past several months, whining about shouting, explosions, gunshots, and other innocuous clatter. Conagher joined the discussion with Gareth and their neighbors. After enduring a profane outburst from a vintage clothing store owner, Conagher responded, "We're noisy. So what else is new?" The clothier didn't get it. Something about the timing of Conagher's statement caused the team to fall out laughing. The next day, Conagher stood in front of the marina and let a police officer write him a citation. He then went back to his mansion, tore it up, taped it back together, and paid the fine. This was one example of what Lozano experienced on a daily basis. He roomed with Ash Longstride, whose home, unfortunately, was the SS Minnow. From the outside, the craft's seaworthiness was questionable. Within, while not as contrastingly luxurious as Conagher's mansion, it was livable. Getting around a small boat on crutches was annoying. Lozano figured it was some kind of test, so he worked around it. Early on, before the noisy incident, Conagher sat Lozano down and said, "I know that, to say the least, you've come from a highly structured environment. Here, it's not like that. You figure out what needs to be done, and you do it. We eat together twice a day because it's fun, and to ensure we're on the same page, but you're on your own for the most part. Not much is expected of you for now other than training and recovery. Put some kit together and get acquainted with everyone. The mission I'm eyeing for you will involve a lot of time on foot." "On foot where?" "Be ready for anything." Lozano was ready for anything except the Bible stuff. Over the past several months, he'd grown compartmentalized in his faith: church and the Navy, church and school, church and home. The secular and sacred had been divided in his life, especially since his breakup, and he had to merge them together again. More than with Ellie, he'd dropped the ball in his relationship with God. Conagher gave Lozano a form where he was expected to record daily Bible reading, verses he'd be memorizing, and journal writing. It was like boot camp all over again. He spent an hour with Conagher every couple of days in something resembling counseling with a twinge of Bible study. He was still angry. Physical recovery was Lozano's sole pursuit. He bought a spiral notebook and some pencils from the 7-Eleven down the street, planned his weekly schedule down to the minute, and executed. First priority, recovery. Second, figure out this Conagher thing. Third, which he never wrote down, was to forget Ellie. Lozano had an opportunity to recover from failure. He wouldn't waste it. A week in, during some time in the basement gun range across from Katsaros, the Greek's workshop-like office, Katsaros commented, "Conagher's not sending you out into the field in under 6 months." Normally, Lozano would hear a remark like that and double down to prove his naysayers wrong. This time, it stuck in him like a knife. 6 months might as well have been the rest of his life. The thought of not being able to go into the field made him unreasonably angry. He took it out on everyone. He was unbearable, and he didn't care. He tried setting up Vero in his mind as a kind of female savior. Things got awkward fast with Vero and her father, and he backed off. At several points, Conagher told David that unless he got over himself, he would return to his mommy and daddy in Stanford. 9 weeks in, during a so-called come-to-Jesus meeting, Lozano finally asked Conagher, "Why me?" Conagher closed his Bible. "Why you, David? You're a Christian, at least that's what I've been told. When I spoke with your pastor, he said you're a good man. When you were in elementary school, your dad explained the gospel of Jesus Christ to you, that he came to earth, lived a sinless life, died, and rose again for you. He said you're a leader. He said you went to Stanford University under a lot of pressure. He said you were in love, went through an intense time due to idiot university politics. As a result, you hit the eject button and joined the Navy. You're a high-functioning high achiever. You have a tendency to succeed when you should fail. Now you've failed, and you're here. That's why we're all here. Second, you're a diversity hire." "Sir?" "You're brown-skinned. I can pass you off as a Muslim." "I'm a diversity hire?" "Yes, with nearly unlimited potential to serve your country. But hey, there's always Stanford if you want to return to Plan C." "Does serving your country interest you?" Conagher asked. "Sure it does." "Really?" "Because I feel like you're far less interested in that than in trying to prove something to yourself." "What is it?" "What is what?" "That you're trying to prove." "You think I dropped out of Stanford, joined the Navy, and got myself through Hell Week not to serve my country, not with some high and lofty goal that sustains men in hard times, but just to prove something?" "Yes." "You think that happens?" "I know it happens. What is it, and to whom? Be careful now. It doesn't matter how good you are. Life has a way of humbling you." Lozano tensed. He knew Conagher could read his face, but he had to hide it, from himself, if no one else. With every step he took to run away from God, he felt colder, harder, darker. "Here's where this is going, David. You've got a week. Get the chip off your shoulder, or you're out. I've got an operation that's way bigger than you or me. It's hanging on two things. First, conditions on the ground where we're going. Second, you are acting like a spoiled little toddler." There, Lozano's attitude changed on a dime. "So, is this operational?" "What am I doing?" "You're not doing anything until you shape up." Conagher held out his right hand. In it was a brown, oily coffee bean. "Take the pebble from my hand." David swiped for it and missed. Conagher popped the bean in his mouth and crunched on it. "I'm not tracking," David said. "What do you mean?" "I don't understand. Take the pebble from my hand. Is that from a movie or something?" "Yes, that was from a movie or something," Conagher said, then mumbled. "You've never seen The Karate Kid? Wow, I'm old." A chance to leave San Diego and do something worthwhile? Lozano was all in. He instantly regretted being a jerk to everyone. Gradually, he opened up. He stayed focused and worked out for 5 hours a day. Not being able to run ate him alive. Having to stay out of the water was killing him. Twice, he took an Uber to the opulent Hotel del Coronado, limped along the beachfront resort, then all the way down the Strand, a 2-lane road with San Diego Bay on one side and the Pacific Ocean on the other. He learned that Conagher was more than just a CIA contractor. The man emailed the director of the CIA semi-regularly, and what Conagher had said was true. The team operated completely without oversight or authority short of the President of the United States, who, for the most part, treated red cards with laissez-faire carelessness. Though it may be, the guys speculated, that some former commanders-in-chief were never told that the red cards were there. Red cards, plural. How many red cards were around the country, and what could they be up to? Lozano broached the thought with others on the team. They told him Conagher never spoke about it. Recovery went well. Lozano kept up his training and diet. One day, during a team trip to the coffee shop, Lozano felt like a show-off. He grabbed onto a light pole and held himself in the air horizontally. Vero counted to 30, and then Lozano set his feet gently on the ground again. Conagher saw it and smiled. At that moment, Lozano was part of the team. Conagher smiled. "Lozano, let's go to my office. It's time to put you to work. Gareth, get a fake passport ready for my friend here." Chapter 9. An hour after Lozano's celebration, Conagher sat him down in the library. "So, crypto. Do you remember that old story about the guy who died and didn't give his Bitcoin password to anybody? No one could log into his account, so 20 million US was lost forever?" "Yes, sir. Crypto's popular with terrorists, and we've got a little situation with a dead guy, a crypto cold wallet, and X marks the spot. I hate working outside the country, but I will make an exception here." David knew better than to speculate out loud, but he had been thinking Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, someplace on the news. "This is someplace you'll never see on the news," Conagher said. "To report it, mainstream media would have to learn how to spell it. It's called Stepanakert in Azerbaijan. You heard of it?" "No, sir. It's a large city by Azerbaijani standards. That area has faced near constant attempts at overthrow by revolutionaries for the past several years. Things have gotten hot there lately. You want some coffee?" "No, thank you, sir." "Suit yourself." Conagher opened a cabinet next to his leather chair. Inside was a small paper bag full of coffee beans. As he spoke, he opened the bag and poured them into a Swiss-made coffee maker that probably cost more than David's car. On one side of this so-called revolution is the Azerbaijani government. They're allied with Russia, which has deployed peacekeeping forces to the region, so there's that. If we go there, and if you're ever discovered as an American, let's just say a highly publicized prisoner swap, Brittany Griner style, is not in your future. "Yes, sir." Conagher pressed a button on the coffee machine. It started grinding. On the other side are the so-called revolutionaries, a group called the Republic of Artsakh. They've been trying to destabilize Stepanakert lately with some success. The city is now abandoned, aside from the guys fighting for it. As the fighting intensified a couple months ago, 2 men of note stayed behind. The first was a highfalutin gangster whose name I can't pronounce. He partnered financially with the Azerbaijani government, hiring a group of mercenaries to defend the city. He was also in heavy negotiations with his Eastern European mafia buddies. Negotiations for what? To end the conflict and change the balance of power on the continent. He'd raised nearly $200 billion, all in crypto, but he was paranoid. Nobody could touch it. Now check this out. He'd locked it all into a single cold wallet. What's a cold wallet? A fancy kind of flash drive. Sometimes they're as secure as nuclear codes, or so I hear. Coffee dripped from the machine into Conagher's cup. $200 billion? Lozano almost laughed. Correct. 10 times Azerbaijan's annual military spend. We're talking fighter jets, tanks, cruise missiles, possibly enough to fund a nuclear weapons program. They'd not only turn Azerbaijan's enemies to sawdust, they'd position the country as a formidable arm of the Russian Federation, or an antagonist, depending on where the chips land. So, an Azerbaijani gangster is your first man of note. The second was his assistant, who, it turns out, was an asset. For whom? For us, the land of the free and the home of the brave. This guy had to be the wildest CIA asset in the history of the modern world. He'd helped siphon so much gangster money into one place he could have started his own country. Why didn't he? Because he was a good guy, I guess. Anyhow, he had the passkeys, seed phrases, and login information. Then, several hundred insurgents fought their way into the city. A pair of rocket-propelled grenades struck a car they were in. The gangster and our asset were incinerated. Steam rose from the coffee machine. The smell was beautiful beyond Lozano's capacity to describe. During the assault, the Republic of Artsakh was led to believe they'd blown up the building holding the money. It's presumed lost. But it's not? Conagher shook his head. Wrong building. The cold wallet is hidden in a basement beneath a shopping mall. Only we know about this. The asset sent a cell phone picture on Telegram seconds before he was killed. We want the money. There's too much at stake in that region of the world. So $200 billion is sitting on a hard drive in Azerbaijan, and we're going to go get it. Yep. What's the delay? If it happened months ago, why haven't you gone in and stolen it already? Fighting's been all over downtown. We've been biding our time, hoping it would cool off. In another week, they'll have the Republic of Artsakh pushed out of Stepanakert and into the Caucasus Mountains. Lozano smiled. So, a $200 billion treasure hunt. You in? I just want to be clear. The only reason you want me is because I'm a DEI hire? Conagher sipped his coffee. If that's what you want to hear. What's the plan? Lozano asked. There's a division at the Pentagon that creates fake lives, jobs, family histories. Then they nurture them, sometimes for decades, keeping them ready for agents or assets to just walk into. In your case, you're a South African YouTuber who breaks into abandoned buildings and makes videos for fame and glory. Your signature item is a huge belt buckle that says Big Texas. More on that later. The idea, cover-wise, is that war zones have deserted buildings ripe for urbex, which is internet talk for urban exploration. We've got backdoors into YouTube and years' worth of digital assets that can be reskinned with your face. And we've got 70,000 subscribers for you. Years' worth of comments, everything. Your followers would love nothing more than watching you defy death. And making a video in Stepanakert will be my pièce de résistance. Yep. Anyway, you and I will fly into a city called Baku, Azerbaijan. Then we'll rent a car, drive as close as possible to the front, and you'll hike the rest of the way in. What if I get caught? Best case, Russian gulag. What'll the Navy say? You're out of the Navy. What'll you tell my parents? Nothing? What if I say no? You go back to the center. By this, he meant the Navy. In all honesty, you've got an okay chance of returning to Buds, and you can try for the SEALs again back at square one. You can walk away anytime. You might have a pretty good career without us. Back in the Navy. That feels so long ago. He looked at his knees. You wouldn't do anything to hold me back? Of course not. If you don't work out, I'll send somebody else. Like, I'm not being ordered to do this? Nope. You really think I'd trade being a SEAL for being an agency spook? Conagher shrugged. Join the Navy. See the world. Lozano let his eyes drift to the ceiling. One way or another, right? One way or another. Are you ready to tell me why you're here yet? Nope. There's always Stanford. Never, Lozano said. But by then, he'd realized he was lying to himself. Chapter 10. Stepanakert, Azerbaijan, present day. Weeks later, standing in front of an abandoned shopping mall with a $200 billion digital hidden treasure inside, David Lozano still wasn't ready. David, did it work? Roger. He stepped inside the building. I'm in. "You'll lose radio contact with me in a second," Conagher said. "Just listen for that drone. It'll sound like a soft hum, near silent, like hearing a bumblebee. Keep your ears peeled." "I'm going to distract them." "How are you going to—" The world shook. David swung around. Through the window, half a mile away, was a ball of fire. On top of it, riding the explosion like a surfboard, was a flaming Chevy Silverado, Conagher's distraction. "That should buy you some time." "Understood." Lozano wondered where Conagher had gotten explosives. He lost no time disappearing into the shopping mall. It was dark. His boots clicked on tiled floors with a thin strip of red tape down the center. Around him were chest-high glass cases, empty but unbroken, creating claustrophobically narrow walkways. Now, where was the basement? The now-deceased CIA mole with the cold wallet passkeys had left detailed and exhaustive instructions for finding the money. He just never said how to find the stupid basement, and all David needed to do was find the basement before his assailants arrived. Easy day. He could tell that the mall had been looted before they locked it up. Shelves were bare. Display cases were shattered and empty. He suspected that the buried treasure he sought had been stolen weeks ago. Nonetheless, he was here. Maybe the whole mission was a Moscow ruse. Russia had cooked up the entire 200 billion story, fed it to the CIA guy, fed bogus info to the Pentagon, and then executed him. If so, David was in for a rough time. Whatever. "Hey, David, just a heads up, your friends are Fluggle, Bluff, and Farth and Blagum." Like that, David's radio was gone. No doubt the building was blocking the signal, not easily done for a satellite phone of his caliber, but it did indicate that this structure was built differently than normal and for a purpose other than low-cost retail. Perhaps it was once a gangster's hideout, or was David's signal being blocked by the bad guys? Come to think of it, who were the bad guys? He still wasn't sure who was trying to track him down or why, yelling from outside. Great. More empty glass cases, minuscule shops enclosed by cabinetry, probably for shelling cheap knockoffs of designer goods. A gunshot. Lozano heard broken glass about 30 feet behind him. He swung his Kalashnikov in that direction and saw no movement. Moving on, he rounded a corner and found a Western-style bathroom. On the walls were taped unframed Russian Orthodox images printed on yellowed paper. If there was an entrance to a basement somewhere, maybe he could follow the plumbing from this room. The toilet bowl was dried out. He exited the lavatory and walked around it. Silence. If the bad guys were going to enter the building, they'd be in by now. Maybe they'd send the drone in first? He saw a cement brick wall with an 8-foot by 8-foot pegboard leaning against it. Behind it, there was a glint of metal. He looked closer. A door handle. He slid the pegboard over. A steel door. Somewhere on the other end of the building, a man was talking. Lozano knew he should hide, but he had only one shot at this. He opened his wallet and removed his best lockpicking tool. A Starbucks gift card he'd picked up at the airport in Baku. And there was a miracle. Within 5 seconds of sliding it between the strike and door frame, it swung open. Now he saw a set of cement stairs going down into darkness. Lozano pulled the pegboard over, lodged it in front of the door, and walked through, closing the door behind him. He prayed to God that the soft, whirring sound in the distance had only been his imagination. Chapter 11. It was just like the horror movies he'd grown up on. Pitch black, cement stairs leading down to nowhere. He opened his pack and removed an old Rothko flashlight he'd had since he was 11. A couple of years ago, he'd taken it apart and installed a dimmer. He turned it on and left it dim. The stairs led to a cement floor in a cluttered tool room. There was a sink, mop, long shelves with paper towels and cleaning chemicals, and a Taylor Swift calendar from 2020. On the far end was a corkboard computer desk covered in papers, food wrappers, receipts, a full ashtray, and an Acer computer. A coffee mug full of pens was scattered on the floor. Whoever had been there last had left in a hurry. His ears rang. He heard footsteps maybe 5 meters away. He pointed his gun toward the door and waited, tapping from the ceiling. A pair of footsteps walked overhead, boots clanging on cement. Then quiet. He lowered his rifle and then took the Taylor Swift calendar off the wall. Behind it was a safe with a fingerprint scanner. Easy day. Lozano pulled a small device from his pack, a black rubber finger cot that went on his thumb, allowing Lozano to fake the dead CIA asset's thumbprint. He hit a button, sending a capacitive charge through the device, then scanned his thumb. Click. The safe opened as expected. It worked for James Bond back in the 80s, Lozano thought, and it worked for me. Then he went for the boxes. They had e-ink screens on the front like Amazon Kindles and displayed black and white images of Renaissance paintings. He dug through them until he found one with the Sistine Chapel. Supposedly, this was the cold wallet he was looking for. He pulled it out, set it on the desk, and then dug through his bag again, removing his phone and a cable. There was still no reception, but he could still do what needed to be done here. He hooked the cable between the cold wallet and his phone and opened a custom app that Gareth had written. A red circle appeared on his phone's screen. He waited. Footsteps from upstairs. Instantly, Lozano's weapon was pointed at the door. Again, silence. A distant bump from the ceiling. Maybe it was Conagher. Maybe he'd hear the soft hiss of his boss's suppressed M4. Bodies would hit the floor, and the rest of the operation would be a cakewalk. Footsteps. He knocked a screw off the table. It bounced on the floor, creating a metallic ding that might as well have been a gunshot. That's a lie, he told himself. No way an assailant could hear a screw drop through that oversized metal door. The latticework groaned. He held his gun straight overhead now, following as an unseen enemy went directly over his head, and kept walking. Nothing he could do but keep working. The circle on Gareth's app turned from red to green and then displayed a message. Cold wallet verified. You rich homie? Lozano smiled. As weird as Gareth was, he was pretty funny. This was the cold wallet he was looking for. $200 billion. Enough to change the balance of power in Europe. Or he could purchase a single-bedroom condo in California. The other cold wallets went into his backpack. He unzipped another section of the pack and removed an identical dummy with Sistine Chapel wallpaper. He put it in with the others. After that, he took the big money wallet, opened a compartment on his big deal Texas belt buckle, and hid it inside. Another cheesy James Bond move. This one might even work. David Lozano had just stolen $200 billion from the Russian mob. Great, he could cross that off his bucket list. More footsteps from above. The sun would be setting by now. As long as his assailants didn't have any reinforcements on the way, David's odds got better the more time passed without his being discovered. He'd expected this whole thing to be some sort of Russian ruse, but the money was real. David had more money in his backpack than the GDP of 90% of the cities in America. He assembled the desk into something resembling its previous state of chaos. Why bother, David thought. The inside of this room might never be seen by another living being. He reassembled his kit bag, put it on, put Taylor Swift back on the wall, and turned off his flashlight for a moment to think. His watch said 1930. It would be dark out. He'd make noise opening that door. Either way, it was time to leave. The last thing he wanted was to take his boots up those cement stairs. He walked softly, trying to avoid making noise, and was, for the most part, successful. He pulled the door open. He looked down. A glowing red dot illuminated his chest. He was dead. Chapter 12. Lozano saw three things. The red dot of a laser sight on his chest, the last ribbon of dusk through the window he'd shot out to enter the building, and Conagher kneeling behind the counter of a coffee shop, M4 rifle in hand. The weapon was an extension of Conagher's personality. A surefire suppressor on the front, a Trijicon ACOG optical on top, and a red dot sight that produced the bright red circle of light over Lozano's heart. The circle moved. Conagher had pointed his weapon at the ceiling. "We can whisper," Conagher said. "How'd it go?" David patted his backpack. "We rich, homie." Scanned? And confirmed. "I heard someone walking. Was that you?" Conagher nodded. "Bad guys are 2 doors down, moving east from building to building. Ma Deuce is closer. Can we get out of here?" "Negative. Surrounded." "3 men?" "3." David took a mental step back. There was a chance they could take out all 3 assailants, but that would result in the entire Azerbaijani army coming after them. There was no way they could hike 50 kilometers under those circumstances. The best course of action was to be ninjas, wait for the search party to give up, and then exfiltrate. Patience would be a virtue. "What about that drone?" "Unknown. We're probably dead, but there's good news." "What's that?" Conagher held up a small foil and plastic bag. I found these beans in a coffee booth down there. They're still good." He took a bean and popped it in his mouth. It crunched like a peanut. He held the bag out to David, who shrugged and took 3. They tasted like buttered charcoal to him. "I'm no expert. How do they taste to you?" "Excellent. You can't even tell they're 6 months old. So what's our play?" "Our play is, we wait." David heard nothing but the crunch in his mouth. It would be far more practical to search building to building with a tiny drone than to do it yourself, he thought. He thought this as he saw a movement out of the corner of his eye, a black blur rising slowly into the air like a bouncing basketball. He didn't think. He lifted his pistol. As he did, he finally got a good look at the black Hornet. Conagher had said it was a little guy, and it was. Not even 4 inches long, it was a tiny black helicopter that looked like a child's plaything. Even as Lozano made a decision that would affect the rest of his life, he looked at the drone and thought, "That's it? All this drama over a toy?" Those were his thoughts as he drew a bead on the machine and then shot it. Full blast. Sounded like a nuclear bomb. A tiny shower of sparks. Bits of metal flew around them. Something hit David on the cheek. The crash reverberated off the cement tiling as the wreckage of the Black Hornet drone hit the ground. David and Conagher remained frozen, listening to the gunshot echo off the buildings around them and through the town. He looked at Conagher. More good news. Conagher was on his feet faster than David had ever seen a man move. He rushed for the busted front window of the shopping mall. David bolted after him. "Only way out is to the north," Conagher said. "We're taking it." From the back of the mall, explosions. The big 50 firing off, a tracer over his head, the nightmare repeating itself. He jumped through the window as a bullet tore through the ceiling above him. Behind them, the front end of the building collapsed as he ran straight ahead. Conagher was still barely visible in the dark, sprinting around a bombed-out fire station. "It's going to be a long night," Conagher shouted, disappearing into the trees. Chapter 13. Now, the forest, dense and dark. Conagher was in his early 50s but ran like a jackal. Lozano was 30 years younger and 6 inches shorter, and he still had a tough time keeping up. Trees blurred by. He thought he was in the clear, but a thick branch exploded beside him, and a wood chip caught in his mouth. He was never the strongest runner, but how was Conagher moving so fast? Lozano heard firecrackers behind him, 100 meters away maybe. Short bursts of gunfire, a round or two at a time, not a good sign. It implied they were aiming before pulling the trigger. Dirt exploded around his feet, and he tumbled, watching Conagher hop behind a fallen log. On his feet again, a bullet whizzing by his ear, he jumped over the tree trunk and landed next to Conagher, listening to 7.62 millimeter rounds tear their cover into splinters. "That heavy machine gun is coming our way," Conagher said. "Hear that?" His head turned right. A tracer flew over his head from that direction. A double flank, not bad. "David, how many magazines do you have for that Eurotrash pistol?" 3. "All right, there's men on our left." Conagher pointed. "Take that pop gun and give me some cover fire." Playing bullet chicken with an enemy who knew Lozano's position, had a bead on him, and possessed superior firepower was always a pleasure. David crawled to the right side of the log and attempted to find a target in the dark. He couldn't see anything, thought he might have noticed a blur about 400 yards off, and emptied his magazine 3 shots at a time. Pop, 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 pop. Instantly, he took fire from 2 directions. David spotted a muzzle blast and aimed for it, a tough ask with a 9mm on a target 100 yards away. Pop, pop, pop. The muzzle of the still-firing enemy weapon flew upward and pointed at the sky. 1 kill. David decided. That gave him permission to duck. Conagher was wrapped around the opposite end of the log. He turned to Lozano and smiled. 2 down, I've still got it, apparently. David dropped the empty magazine from his pistol and reloaded it. "We can't stay here," Conagher said. "Move." Again, they took off. The forest thinned. To David's right was some kind of structure, a house or a barn. In the distance, engines. "Great," Conagher said. BRDM-2s. BRDM-2s were small, armored amphibious vehicles. Death on wheels. Their only hope was to go deep enough into the forest that the larger vehicles couldn't follow them. But who knew how many troops they were carrying? And how come the forest kept getting thinner? "The whole city's waking up," Conagher said. "Head for the barn." And then David heard the chopper and knew they wouldn't make it. He could tell by the sound that it was a Mi-25 Hind, a twin bubble canopied attack helicopter, 30mm cannon, rockets, air-to-ground missiles, nearly unstoppable from the ground, and coming for two little guys jogging through the forest. It flew almost directly above him, beaming a powerful searchlight. "Assault vehicles to our left," Conagher shouted. Twin light streams pulsed from above machine gun fire from the BRDM-2s. Bullets sliced through the trees. Bits of forest fell around him. The chopper hovered. A voice boomed unintelligibly from a megaphone in the sky. David couldn't make it out over its engines. Conagher stopped, holding up his right hand. Lozano didn't stop. He ran forward on all 16 cylinders, then glanced upward, into the spotlight. The mistake of his life. His corneas short-circuited. Blinded, he stumbled on something, got up, ignoring Conagher's shouting, sprinted ahead and leaped into nothing. Nothing. Conagher's voice fell up and away. He'd run off a cliff. A full second in the air. His right heel struck first. Then his body crumpled. The arms in front of his face prevented a broken neck. The rest smacked full force into the earth. A baptism of pain. Air, air. But knives filled his lungs. He thought, you usually black out at moments like this. Why haven't I? Move, move. His left leg wouldn't respond. Every heartbeat, every vibration, every blood cell jetting through his body felt like a ball of fire. He opened his eyes. Grass, rocks, and leaves were lit white all around. Far above, his voice echoing through the trees, Conagher shouted. Lozano could see where he'd just fallen from. It was 15 feet high, maybe 20. How many meters? They used meters here in Eastern Europe, didn't they? The chopper spoke in broken English. Americans, Amerikanski, do not move, or you will be fired upon. The voice seemed far off, then close, then far off again. If pain were a party, Lozano was at Mardi Gras. Boots crunched on the ground nearby. David! Conagher shouted. Lozano half groaned, half belched. Above them, the Mi-25 shone its spotlight. It looked like a UFO or an angel coming to take Lozano to speak with God directly. A pair of ropes fell from the chopper's open cargo door. Two men descended. Chapter 14. Lozano saw stars, struggling to regain his situational awareness. The first man was broad-shouldered, with short gray hair, a flat and wide nose, pale nearly to the point of albinism, and blue eyes visible and striking in the near darkness. He wore a full military uniform with a single star on his shoulder, a major general. The second was bald and had a runner's build. He ran to Lozano immediately, putting his hands on him, a medic. The first man spoke. I am Major General Rasulov. He pointed at David, then looked at him in disgust before saying with a thick accent, You don't even look Azerbaijani. David said nothing. The medic spoke in Russian for a full minute. Lozano only understood the last word. Ketamine. Lozano managed to say, Greet gat yak 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 yak. He felt a needle in his hip, then choked. Thanks, Doc. You're one of the real ones. Rasulov frowned. We have no intention of harming you. You will not be interrogated. There is no need for public international humiliation. We have what we want. We will fly you to Baku. From there you will go home to America. Your flight is already booked. What is this? Conagher asked. You are leader here? Head American? Yes. The Major General smiled. Good news. You have failed. Our mutual CIA agent friend who told Americans about money, we captured him. He was in our vehicle on his way to tell us the location of the money but never had the chance. Ambushed from Republic of Artsakh. He was killed, and all with him. Lozano let his head fall to the soft earth. The world spun around him. So, Rasulov continued, we know that somewhere in Stepanakert there is a cryptocurrency hard disk with billions of money, but we do not know the location. A stick-bug-thin soldier stood over Lozano. Lozano tried to stare him down. Rasulov continued, Americans know nothing of the Azerbaijani war. You care only about fighting in Ukraine because of their riches, yes? Now, you find out about money in Azerbaijan. Suddenly you pay attention. Why? You think you can steal from us and keep for yourselves. But what can we do with these billions? We defeat Republic of Artsakh. We retake Nagorno-Karabakh. We secure our country. Our children have sleep and food. Then we take Armenia. But you Americans, you steal from the poor to make yourselves rich. You need more money for your transgender surgeries and homosexual weddings, yes? Do you think we give up $20 billion to woke America? Never. We knew this cold wallet was in Stepanakert somewhere. We knew you were coming for it. So, we wait for you to come. When we saw you, I needed only to keep my men from killing you. I almost failed at this, but here we are. Why don't you kill us? Conagher asked. I would love to, but I cannot. I am ordered to leave a message for you and the Central Intelligence Agency. A drop of sweat fell from the skinny soldier's chin and landed on Lozano's face. What's that? Conagher asked the Major General. Leave us alone, Rasulov said. Stay away from Azerbaijan, from my country and its people. We want only the money and you out of our country. And we would be grateful if you could tell your superiors that we have beaten you. Give me hard drive, please. I told you I hated working outside the country, Conagher told Lozano. It's in my pack, Lozano said. He felt hands going through his backpack. Good luck with the encryption. Rasulov smiled. We don't need luck. Russian cyber is best in the world. Now, gentlemen, to your limousine. David looked at Conagher, utterly defeated. The pain felt identical to the fall he took in Bud S. His hip broken again. They tied him to a stretcher and walked him and Conagher back into town while the chopper landed. Would the Russians keep their promise? Would they just put him on an airplane back to the United States? Was that all? Were they so interested in trolling the US of A that they wouldn't bother throwing him and Conagher in the gulag? The Hind helicopter never powered down. They carried Lozano through the open passenger door and set him on the cabin floor. Conagher and Rasulov stood over him. Ellie, Lozano called to Ellie in his mind. He thought, Ellie, hear me, I know you can. He was never sentimental until this moment, and he didn't care if it was the broken bones and ketamine. She was the only woman he'd ever loved. He'd walk on crutches from San Diego to Stanford, all 476 miles, and beg for her to take him back. He'd lose, but he'd win. Conagher looked at him. I'm sorry. Lozano winked at him, tapping his belt buckle. There's always Stanford. Is that what you want? That's all that's left. I'm sorry, Conagher said. It's not your fault. It doesn't matter how good you are. Life has a way of humbling you, right? The Russian medic put his hand on Lozano's thigh and stuck him with a needle again. After a barrage of Russian gobbledygook, the medic yelled at Conagher. He'd be okay, man, he pointed to Lozano. Okay, leg bad, okay. Again, maybe it was the ketamine, but Lozano had every confidence that Sam Conagher had his back. Lozano had tried to become a Navy SEAL and get on with the red cards, and it hadn't worked out, but Sam Conagher would help it all come together. 6 months later, he would. The Russians would unceremoniously throw Conagher and Lozano on an Aeroflot flight to New York, keeping their promise. Lozano would recover, magically receiving an honorable discharge from the Navy after 11 months. He'd receive a return text from Eliana on his first day as a civilian. Reconciliation went more quickly than he thought. Later, he'd wince at the ache in his hip bone as he got on one knee to seal the deal with her. Later on, as if by magic, the Central Intelligence Agency would call. Lozano would answer. They'd hire him, and he would enjoy a successful career as an analyst in the Pentagon labyrinth. Few people in the agency would ever know that Lozano had single-handedly smuggled billions of dollars out of Stepanakert, Azerbaijan, on a mini USB drive hidden in his belt buckle, changing the balance of power in Europe. Fewer would know that it had all started because he'd stood up for his girlfriend in front of a coward protester on an Ivy League university campus. A lot can happen when you pull the right beard at the right time, Lozano thought. Whether that thought made sense, he couldn't tell anymore, and he didn't care. The ketamine really hit now. Lozano's vision dissolved into red, and he floated sideways into the void. The last sensation he felt that day was a soft jolt as the helicopter lifted into the black and oily air. Thank you for joining me and David Lozano all the way to the end of his story. It was a journey about hitting rock bottom and finding a humbling, unexpected path forward. While David's mission here is complete, the world of Sam Conagher and his team of broken toys is just getting started. The adventure continues in the next book, Liberator, which you can learn more about on my website. As I mentioned in the author's note, I'm deeply honored you took the time to listen, and I'd love to connect with you. Please visit my online home at jpburton.com, that's jpburten.com, to join my email list for updates and freebies. You can also get in touch with me there directly. Finally, if this story resonated with you, it would mean the world to me if you'd consider leaving a review on whatever platform you're listening on. It truly helps other listeners find the book. Thanks again for listening.